911. Go ahead.
Information only. If you're responding to the state fairgrounds, we had a collapse of a grandstand area. We have multiple people trapped and multiple injuries.
What was strange for me is I grew up in a family of firemen and policemen. I was a 911 dispatcher, and I was used to being on the other side, not on the side where I was the one actually asking for help.
1822 is going to go to Op 2 as well. We've got some patients that are going to need to be transported immediately.
When I came to, I was laying in the sand. My 10-year-old Danielle was standing over me, and I turned around and I saw Maggie on the inside of the beam leaning up against it. So I went to stand up to go get her, and that's when I fell and my leg was sticking out sideways. So I scooted to her. I scooped her up in my arms, and as I did that, I'm looking for my mom and my other daughter. And then Danny, my 10-year-old, starts screaming her arm.
Hey, we need a tourniquet! We need a tourniquet! We need a tourniquet! Hey, we need a medic really bad for this little girl! Right here!
I knew we had to stop the bleeding, and so I started hollering we needed a tourniquet, and at the same time, it was racing through my head knowing that I could take my shirt off and use that. And I got that off and was trying to find a way to get it in between her body and her arm.
When I went into the rigging and I came upon the little girl and her mother, the little girl Maggie and Laura, I noticed that her arm was bleeding very badly, and so I assessed her arm and realized that she had a very significant injury. There was so much blood on the ground and on her and on me as well that I knew we didn't have that much time. So I grabbed this piece of cloth, which turned out to be David Wood's shirt he had taken off and thrown to me.
And I started saying we needed a doctor, and that's when Dr. Kleinsteiber started climbing from above and came down to help take over with
Right
Natalie.
here! I just gave him my shirt for a tourniquet! I'm a doctor. It's breaking! Come on, sir! Hey, we got a doctor! Watch out!
I remember him hearing, "We need a doctor," and I screamed back, "I'm a doctor, I can help." And he hands her to me, and I'm trying to hold this girl and deal with her arm at the same time, and I turned to try to get out. I took a few steps and I climbed over one girder, but I realized, I couldn't do this alone. Right then, this man comes up to me, and it turns out his name is Chris Lockman.
It'll be all right. It'll be all right. My dad's in there. He's getting someone out.
He and I reapplied the tourniquet that was coming loose, and at the point in time we went over to the edge of the stage collapse area, and I handed her over to the rafters to a gentleman standing on the outside, jumped over, and I took Maggie back in my arms.
And I told Chris, just hold her arm like this, keep it stable, and run to the first aid area. We're clear now, just take her and get her help.
First thing she says to me is, "Please don't run, it hurts my arm." At the point in time I stopped running and I just started talking to her, and that's when I learned that her name was Maggie. I asked her what her name was. She told me it was Maggie and that her last name was Mullins.
Chris came running in with the little girl in his arms, cradled in his arms. And so I saw that immediately and helped him get her inside the Red Cross building. And we began to assess the little girl's injuries.
There was a cute little 3-year-old, 4-year-old little girl, I wasn't sure how old she was, in a pink tutu. She had brown hair, big brown eyes, and she was very scared.
At that time, I think Mark Bowen had pressure on her arm injury. At that time, I thought, well, let's see if she has any other injuries, and I think she was covered in a blanket, and we removed the blanket, and she had a wound on her thigh.
There was a big gash on her leg that was probably 4 to 6 inches long. It was really wide. You could see the muscle was almost exposed. She was in and out of it majority of the time because she was losing so much blood. She was very pale. Her eyelids, the inside of her eyelids were very pale. Her gums were really pale, and she kept falling asleep on us. Once the ambulance came, she had asked me if I would hold her. And I told her, I said, Maggie, I don't know if I can hold you. I said, but I won't go anywhere. And she just kept saying, "You promise you won't leave me?" And I said, "No, I promise I won't leave you."
At that time, me and my partner entered the building, and we did a quick survey of all the patients to decide who was the most critically injured.
I told her that I would go ahead and carry her and I just had goosebumps from head to toe because I was so nervous. I was so afraid. She kept falling asleep in my arms, and it's pouring down rain. It's black. The sky is black outside. And I was just terrified at that moment because I was so afraid of losing her for falling asleep. She wouldn't stay awake. I carried Maggie back into the back of the ambulance, and we sat down, and I held her in my arms.
At first I thought Maggie was in shock because of everything that had happened and some blood loss. But after I got to talking to her and Deb, I realized that she was thinking clearly. I was very amazed at how calm she was able to keep Maggie.
I carried her in my arms through the emergency department at the ambulance drop-off, and everyone was standing right there waiting for us. And once we got there, they said, "Are you her mother?" And I said, "No, I'm not her mother. I don't know her at all." And instantly, all of the nurses just started to cry.
Thank you to all my new friends.